Um, yeah. Tracy, we have four.
We do have forum.
All right, so I'm going to call the August 7th, 2025 meeting of the Des Moines Area Metropolitan Planning Organization Transportation Technical Committee meeting to order, and we got a gavel. So, first item on the agenda is a motion for that.
I'll move approval.
I'll second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Opposed? Right. Second item, vote for the approval of the June minutes. Need a motion for that. If there are no corrections. And a second. 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 All right. Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Right. Third item on the agenda is a in-trans overview. So I guess Dylan, you can start that.
Yeah, I can start this off here. So we have with us Neil Hawkins from Intrans today. Some of you may know Neil. I think used to work with the city of Des Moines, right? Years and years.
Yep.
But Neil came in a while back here and presented some information to MPO staff that we thought was pretty interesting, and some data that's out there that we weren't aware was out there, that Intrans provides. So I think Neil's going to talk a little bit about Intrans, show some tools that they've got available, and just have a conversation. So Neil, thanks for being here.
Yeah. Appreciate the invitation. Mark, I'll go ahead and share it. Please.
All right.
All right. Well, Dylan said, definitely want to have a conversation. I saw some of your past agendas. They look really interesting. You guys hear a variety of topics. As Dylan mentioned, I worked for the city of Des Moines for 10 years as a traffic engineer, and got thrown into every kind of situation you can imagine, which I greatly enjoyed. Had some great bosses and mentors, so I thoroughly enjoyed it, and all the variety of things I got involved in. So I'm now at Iowa State. I've been there over 20 years as a researcher. I get to teach the capstone class for civil engineering, which is a lot of fun. Just before these kids go out and get their first jobs, and you get to have a lot of different conversations and kind of wrap up all their skills into a project. So that's a lot of fun. Dylan, if you would, we get close to about 5 minutes. Give me a signal. We did visit the other day with Dylan Park. It's been a little while, but wanted to bring some information to your attention. Also, ask you some questions about what you do in your community or your needs, your transportation operational needs. Are most of the folks here in transportation or part of city administration across broad areas, multimodal?
Mix.
A mix. Okay. All right. It's kind of a broad question. Here we go. So obviously there are a lot of moving parts to transportation every day. There's a lot of stuff going on, from new construction to just major interstate reconstruction. And most people think of it as, sort of construction related and delays to my trip to get to daycare, to get to work. But really transportation, as you know, and I'm not telling you anything new, it's integral to your community's vitality. And so thinking about continually working on understanding the problems or the issues that drivers are facing and dealing with those is important. And so we spend a lot of time thinking about data sources, new ways to understand how are people succeeding and failing, and more importantly on the failing side, because we're all humans and we're all drivers and we all make mistakes. There's absolutely no question about that. And we want to be proactive. So you got to accommodate the trucks, you got to accommodate the events and all the other fun stuff that goes on. So if you think about your community, every day you've got a lot of different activities happening, all of which generate some kind of data that you may or may not be capturing, from enforcement to school busing to parking, handling events, and weather is on the right hand side. So that's what leads us to this conversation. We want to talk about some of the things that are out there now that hopefully would be of interest to you, really in terms of decision support. There are multiple ways to get data from the traveling public and how people are performing. One is to stand out there with a clipboard and count it. And those of you who've done that, like me, it gets old and you miss stuff. You got four pedestrians going different ways. It just happens. So there are multiple different sources. One of them is from our own vehicles, newer vehicles. Do provide breadcrumbs, so they'll provide lat long. You cannot identify these vehicles. It's consented, and we don't know where you go at the end of your point. Your most popular 10 journeys are kind of rubbed out. You can't see where they're at. So they're doing everything they can to protect privacy. But there's no way to connect this data to a person or a car. But in aggregate, we can see how many people are driving out on this road at the speed limit or above the speed limit or below it. How many times are they hard braking? All kinds of things like that. So one of the sources of street light is the vehicle-based data. We're getting it real time up at Iowa State. We're purchasing it. It's incredibly expensive. We're buying it on behalf of the DOT and using it for all kinds of things. I'll talk more about it. There are other tools out there that are more like buy a subscription to their software package, and then you can get some analytics things from that. There's vehicles that use the slip between the different axles, so you can tell in winter conditions is traction control coming on these vehicles. Are there and some gauge of how much friction's on the road based on your plowing activity. Then there's cellular data. Our phones, we all think are private. They're never more than 3 feet from us. But there are a lot of companies selling data from your phones, anonymized again. But you get out on the public roadway, that data becomes important information. And I'll show you an example of that. Then there's fleet information. Some of you may have AVL on your trucks. Some of you may have a fleet management software company that's providing you with your engine runtime and other things like that. So let's first talk about crash. This is a crash is a topic where if you're not thinking about it, you kind of get to where you see your annual statistics, you think that's pretty bad. But it's happening every day, and we're fortunate to be able to receive all the video from the Iowa DOT just on their cameras. And every time there's an incident, we will automatically each night record what we can and use that for what happens within a work zone, what's going on. We don't look at every crash, but you get an idea of the frequency of how many crashes are happening out there every day. And it's a lot. So I just want to know how many of you are familiar with Iowa DOT crash analysis tool? Great. Have you used it? Okay, good. So it's an easy way to jump on. I'm not going to bore you with it. I will show you one thing that I want to make sure you're aware of. See how well switching back and forth goes for us here. So when you open it up, if you just ICAT Iowa DOT, you'll get this. If you open it up and click the advanced tool here, which is on the right, you get more options. And so you could literally just choose the Des Moines MPO as an option. And now you see it's already gone to the Des Moines MPO. You can choose which years you want this analysis for, things like that. If you're trying to take a screenshot and you don't want all these other dots in here, you can click over here. My Zoom controls are messing me up. And under crash points, you can say, hey, don't show me the non-selected crash locations. And if I hit that, now it's much cleaner. Of course, you can zoom in as much as you want here and then filter by different kinds of crashes, other things. But the thing I want you to explore is to click over here where it's got this dashboard. Has anyone used this piece yet? So if you click that, there's all kinds of themed dashboards based on different kinds of modes like truck or crash type. So if I just say general, it's going to grab the data that I've highlighted on the left. So we've highlighted Des Moines MPO, and I only chose 2025. Minimize that. There we go. So I only chose 2025. So what it's doing is it's loading up all this information on the right into a really nice, useful dashboard. And everything along the left is what we call key emphasis areas. So it starts with lane departure. And so it's looked at 2025 for your whole MPO and said, how many crashes involve lane departure? How many are intersection or construction, pedestrian, motorcycle, truck, young driver, old driver, the phone is distraction, impairment, seatbelt, and speed. So does it surprise you the two that have the most just for 2025? Speeding and intersection crashes. That's very common for urbanized areas. The further you get away from your urbanized areas, it's lane departure. And it's usually single vehicle run off the road. Why do you think people run off the road so much out in these rural areas? Yes. Yes. What are they distracted by? The corn and beans? No, their phone. It's horrible. Every week we get a summary of fatalities. Single vehicle ran off road, went into the ditch, vaulted, hit a bridge embankment, hit a tree, hit a barn, hit a post. 45% are unbelted of the people who die. That doesn't mean they were all drivers, but it's unbelievable. It's one a day in Iowa. California is 12 a day, and Texas is 12 a day. So it's brutal. It's unbelievable. And so as you think about your vulnerable road users, why are your bikes getting hit, and why? It's a big part of it, and some we shouldn't ignore. So this is a really nice feature, and I just want to show you that if you scroll down, you can see a lot of information about the Des Moines MPO's area and your crash stats for just 2025. What is the most common time of day? What is the day? What is the month? Of course, we're only partially into August here. Is it during daylight or dark conditions that these crashes occur? Yes, that is pretty small. What day of the week has the most crashes? What are the most frequent types of crashes? It's rear end and I can't even read it. I'm on my computer. You can make this bigger. I just don't take time to. Broadside, non-collision. This is weather conditions. This is the major causes over here on the top right, following too close. Or they were distracted and looked up and all of a sudden hit the back of somebody. It talks about what was the harmful event, vehicles in traffic, or it was parked, how many injuries, very few were drug and alcohol related. And then you get to mostly cars and the vehicle actions and the contributing circumstances. Oftentimes the officer doesn't have one. What were the ages of those people that were in these? Now remember, I could have chosen just fatalities and we would have seen that. In fact, one way to do that is up here, you choose any of these. And I know that this red one here is fatalities. And so when I select that, it's going to filter all this data down to just fatalities. And it'll say that you had 13 fatalities since this first of this year. And you can see that 8 of those were in speed related crashes, and 7 were in intersection related. And then you can also see by time of day, day of week, on and on, how many were pedestrians, how many were vehicle, things like that. So I want to encourage you to explore this. Just look for this speed limit sign over here. And you can do a pop out when you do it. You can say, hey, I want to make this thing bigger because I can't see any of it. And you still have all that functionality. So that's the one thing I wanted to point out there. Let's keep moving. So the next is emergency incident notification. Do any of you get these emergency incident notifications that come out of the Traffic Management Center? Have you ever heard of them? So every minute we're sitting here, there's emails going out about what's going on out on the road. And it's specifically when the DOT is dealing with crashes and incidents out there. They will fill out a form and show, see right here, what's happening. So if I said today, if I go to August, let's go August 6th to today. this is what's going on out on the road, this is the whole state. And these are parked cars and request for service. As you can see here, there was a stalled vehicle. Let's see what this is. This is the 3 vehicle crash happened yesterday at 15:49. And if I want to know more about that, I can click this and see the details. So this basically is what goes out in emails. So if you're trying to understand, how many parked cars am I getting? If I went back to July 1st, you'll be staggered to see how many parked cars, just the blue, is stalled vehicles, request for service on our road. That's just since July 1. It's nuts. I question this data every time I see it. The red are really bad by time, long time, or by something else. But we include some weather information and other things. If it's in the Des Moines area and there's cameras, we'll grab that. This one, let's see if we got. Normally we get a little thumbnail image of it. I'm just not picking the right ones. That's out. Anyway, if you're interested, let me know. You can zoom into your area, you can filter it down, but you can see the kinds of things that happen. Remember, a car burning on the side of the road is not going to be your crash data. 50 stalled vehicles on I-35 is not in your crash data. It's in this. This is the operational side of it, not the crash. Crash is the end result. This is as I just opened it. It's updated as of this minute, whereas crash can be, as you know, up to 7 days to get reported. And if it's a bad crash or fatality, it can be longer than that. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. So the last thing is connected vehicle, like emissions. It's coming off vehicles, it's anonymized, it's consented, and we only care about it on the major roads, not someone's driveway or going to their house. Care less. We're getting 12 million records an hour at Intrans. So it's big. We're using it for work zones and anomaly detection and other things. The thing I want to talk to you about is this dashboard we have for speeding. We already saw what speeding is like in your communities. You don't have to say, well, mine's different. No, it's not. We all drive aggressively and we're distracted, but mostly we drive at high speeds and have a tendency to go more than the posted speed limit. So this tool allows you to, we know what the posted speed is in the Iowa DOT's database, and we know what drivers that are the connected vehicle drivers are offering. I'm going to tell you that we're getting about 1 in every 20 vehicles. So don't think it's every vehicle on that road. I know how fast they're going. We don't. It's about 1 in 20, but it's more than enough to know the trend because it's every day, day a week, time of day, anything like that. So I'm going to quickly show you what this tool looks like. Banners are messing me up. So this is looking at the state route for Polk County, and what you're seeing is, why am I such a strange mode here? Get that out of my way. I hate to do this. But what we do is we say, okay, I really only want to see people going 20 or more miles per hour over the posted speed limit. So it lets you say, show me all the ones 10 mile an hour over, 15 mile an hour over, and other things. And you can see by color, green being good, orange being worse, that for these major state routes, the amount of vehicles going 15 miles an hour or 20 miles an hour over, not that many. If I take it down to 10, you're going to get a lot more. And then we provide like a segment rank summary and a ranking for those roads in a selected area. So this is something that we could share with the Iowa State Patrol, for example. We could share it with sheriffs and let them see for their community where people are complying with the speed limit. In some cases, you're going to see where the speed limit in the database is not accurate. And I found a location where I was looking and it's just not accurate. So nobody's complying with the speed limit. And so I've got a slide on that. We'll just go to that. Let's see here. So this is where I was looking just to the west. And I was looking over here. This is Hickman. So this is Menards and Lifetime. I think is it 120 just to the south? Yeah. So it's like, wow, that one shows up and I was using 15 miles an hour over the posted speed limit. So as I looked at that street, it's like, no, that's a 30, this is looking northbound, headed down the hill, 35. So the database, you can hover over it. It says, oh no, we've got the database shows that's 25-mile-an-hour road. Therefore, everyone is not complying. You can see the color, it's orange. And it basically says 56.8% of the vehicles are going 15 miles an hour over. So it's a nice way to use this probe connected data to look at speeding trends on your roads. You can't write tickets from it. This has nothing to do with enforcement. It's a decision support. Like if you're an officer and you're thinking about where am I going to go spend some time, or if you're a city and you're thinking, I've got this fringe between kind of slower speeds and the county that I own, and I'm trying to figure out speed limits. This can help you see what people are driving on those roads and hopefully tie back into some proactive safety kinds of things. All right, Dylan, how are we doing on time?
Okay.
All right. So
I guess I'll leave it up to the group if you want to have questions you want to.
ask me questions. Let's take a pause for a second here. Any questions on those? So the last thing I'll cover is third-party data, and then we'll be done. Speeding not a problem in your community? Talk to your police about it, or are they the ones that kind of manage that part of it? How many of you
I got-
guys?
I got one question. So you're looking at the speed map and if we're only catching what, 1 in every 20 vehicles, so it's really not data I can sit there and try to use to set a speed limit with. I still gotta go out and do a speed study. Is that kind of your thought on that?
It's up to you. I could probably show enough data. I can provide 85th percentile data curves, which is what your speed study is going to do. About 85% of the drivers are choosing this as their safe and appropriate speed. That other 15%, way above. The median is, the 50%, it's the middle, right? So we tend to think about 85th percent. Some say, no, we should bring it back down to the median or the 50th. But it gives you that. And it gives you that for probably way more vehicles than your speed study would have counted. Because you're only going to put road tubes out there for so long, or sensors, or a human. Yeah, you're not going to be there 24/7. The sensors would, but you're not going to leave them out there that long.
Can you filter for time of day?
Oh yeah, I could figure out this funky half screen situation. Dang it! What is going on with this? Let me do this. It'll take a second to open, but it won't be some weird.
Neil, are these tools things that anyone can access, or would they be?
I can share with you, Dylan, a link that your members can take a look at. So this is county routes in the county. There's a selector over here. If I load your municipal routes, it's a lot. So I don't want to sit here and watch it generate that. But if I go over here and zoom in, and you could call us and say, dude, I have no idea what this thing's doing. I just want to see this on this road. We could show that. So when I hover over this road, you see it's orange. It says it's a 25-mile-an-hour road, but that 94% of the vehicles are going 10 miles per hour or more over that speed limit. So either the speed limit's wrong, or there's just a lot of people smoking down this road. So the thing I could do, though, is look at a summary of that segment. And so it's to load that, and then we can look at a ranking. We could do it by the whole area or by specific road. Unfortunately, this is so much data, it takes it a minute. But if I go over here and click just on that road, it's going to update all this to be specific by time of day. So that's what your traffic study would do, and by day of week. So now you see I'm filtering it all by that, and it's going to provide me with that information. I can also get a ranking. I should have left them all selected, but a ranking for that set of roads of which ones are the highest amount of non-compliant. And so you can see for the one I selected, if I unselect, I see all of them. And so you can say for Polk County, here's the list. And how many are exceeding whatever I chose that was 10 miles per hour over. So it you can't do a traffic study even just on the roads we've got shown here, where this gives it to you and it fills in all the blanks. It's not just the major roads, but the minor collectors and other things. So that's the value of it. You're seeing the way people are operating on all these roads, not just because DOT bought the data, that it's their roads, it's all the roads. Hope that helps. And yeah, you can get a lot of details from it, and I could share it. You guys can take a look at this.
Neil, there was a question online.
Yeah,
How did the speed limit corrections get made? It's the database.
yeah. So the way we do them is we provide an update to Iowa DOT, which is in their RAMS database, which is where that is. So you guys, the cities have a connection to provide information to the Iowa DOT about your roads. And that's another good point. Like as cities, I hope you have some electronic file somewhere of all your speed limit reductions for school zones, your speed limits. I know in Des Moines we had them in the ordinance. That was a lookup of a lot of text, and we got to get to where you can share that more digitally. Think if you had a semi-automated vehicle on your road, or the other day we were looking at this automated truck to deliver some things in the Des Moines area potentially. They got to know what your speed limits are. So the more you can provide information about digitally about your roads, the better you're off you're going to be in adopting and using these technologies. But yeah, you'd be able to just let us know, or we can tell you who to tell at the DOT, and they'll make that correction. And we've done a bunch. Good question. Any more questions on this?
There's another one from online.
Good.
Is the emergency incident notification data just state maintained road, or is there data available for local?
It's most of the activities on the state road, but in a lot of cases, these communities still have to go respond to stuff out on I-35 or others. But I kind of wouldn't mind looking at that real quick. We go to the EIN. You know, you can see it's mostly state roads. You can see some out here. This is a state road. It's Iowa 28. It's mostly state roads, but as we get into metro areas, they do have responsibilities. Urbandale Fire will respond here, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. I want to move on just to cover this, and we can have more questions after that if we have time. So one of the third party, so one of the sources I mentioned, vehicle, we talked about, you can go take sensors out, but vehicle data is much more complete. And it's not subject to the errors of data collection with road tubes, et cetera. So it's really good, but there's also phone. Phone is an even higher penetration rate of data points. And what they don't do is provide data when you're in a parking lot or in your house on your phone. Nobody cares in the traffic world. That's not a marketable product. We only care when you're out moving at a certain speed on public roads, and that's the information you can get. But there's companies that provide, this one's called Cambridge Mobile Telematics, where you just subscribe to this, and it will give you, this is, for example, the state of Iowa, a ranked list of people handling their phones. When you're in your car, if you have an app from State Farm or whoever that gives you a discount, if your phone's not kind of in a fixed holder, if you got that phone and you're doing this with it, or you're swiping it, or you're tapping it, they know. And your score is going to reflect it if you're using that tool. So don't do it. But that's what they're measuring here, is how many people are having motion with their phone while driving. And so you can see that it's like 1.57 minutes per hour down in Ringgold County down here. This is a little bit dated, so this is still back April. But they can provide this kind of information. They can provide it by time of day, location, roadway, quite a level of detail. Pretty pricey, but they're just spinning this up and they're interested in feedback. So maybe there's some options there, but you could do a just MPO. You could do other things. It's all pretty loose. This is through Cambridge Mobile Telematics. It's a group of professors from MIT that decided to build this data tool, and they're trying to get a market for it. But the phone use information is super helpful. Then you can pick up other things like bike and head and things. So the last thing I just mentioned is camera. Do many of you use cameras? I know you have cameras on your intersections and it's for observational. Do you do anything else with it in an analytic? Count cars. Okay. There's incredible revolution in the ability to use the camera you already own and put some analytics behind the imagery coming in. Normally it comes to like a network DVR, like your home DVR, but it brings all your cameras in. And that's where the analytics goes on. But there's so much you can do. Look for anomalies. Hey, a dwell, there was a vehicle in this intersection for more than the amount of time they should. Count vehicles, look at wrong way drivers, all that kind of stuff is possible through just the cameras you have. It takes some tweaking and some time, but there's a lot of companies out providing those. And I just want to bring that to your attention as well, because it really can help with agency insights. And there are cities in Iowa that are doing this a lot. Some cities are doing it quite a bit. So I'm not leaving this podium until I get at least one question from the group here. Questions, comments? Doesn't look like anything I'll ever use, Neil.
You guys are probably more on the cutting edge when things like this come out. So I guess what kind of resource can you be as some cold calls and says, hey, we've got this stuff.
Yeah.
Is that something we can do is reach out and think, is this legit? What do you think of this? Is it
Right. So so as a city or county, you can contact us and say, let's take an example that's something that's happened for years. I have crash issues on the corridor. I'm a new county engineer to this county. Where are my crashes? Can you give me a map or a digital form? And the DOT, we have a contract with them to do that for local agents. So in this case, we're doing operations research for DOT, but we're already getting the data and we're already parsing it out. And we've considered, could we provide a weekly or monthly summary on certain roads you care about? Hey, I really want to watch this 128 for the next 8 months or whatever. Hey, I've got a huge construction job going on. I want to see the impacts of speed in the surrounding roads where diversion traffic is happening, things like that. DOT is okay for us doing it. We've asked us, we'll double check with them, but we already have the data. That's the hard part. And we already know how to parse it and apply it to local roads. So I would encourage you to do that, even if it's just on the speeding side. What are people driving on my roads? And we also have hard braking and other things like that might be of interest. But it's super valuable. We're using the connected vehicle data for telling you as you approach a work zone on a high-speed road whether it's slow or stop traffic ahead, because we're getting it real time. So there's a lot of power to it. And half of our towns are torn up right now with road construction, and it could be useful to see where are people going, where's the diversion, what routes are they taking versus our official route. Other comments, questions? Well, I have a colleague who wasn't able to be here today, but he's doing a lot on corridors and signalized corridors and performance of those. So hopefully at some point he can stop in and share with you guys what's going on there and how you might take advantage of that too. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Ready? Okay. Right, next on the agenda, we have a report and vote from Janet, on the Transportation Capital Improvement Plan.
First, I wanted to thank you again for sending your CIPs over and filling out that Excel sheet with your transportation related projects. As you know, this is an annual report that is done, and it's basically a document compiling all the transportation related projects occurring in the region. And it's collected by the CIPs and Excel sheets. And there's two things that I have for you. First is this document, which is going to have a table breakdown of projects and funding. And then I also completed a story map as well. Here is an overview of our jurisdictions and where funding is being spent from fiscal years 2026 to 2029. And it's split within these transportation categories. As you may have noticed, streets is now its own individual category, separate from parking lots. And you can't see here, but that's going to be traffic studies. And under the screen sharing is going to be an active transportation category. Some of you may be familiar with that, but if not, staff is working on an active transportation plan. We'll have a presentation on that after. And basically in this category is our trail projects and sidewalk projects and any other projects that facilitate active transportation. Here's a pie graph showing that out of all the total amount of money being spent in fiscal years 2026 to 2029, 66% of that funding is going towards street projects, followed by 19% in bridge projects, and then followed by 6% in intersection projects. This bar graph here is going to be our funding by fiscal year. As you can see, there's an increase in spending in 2027, fiscal year 2027, followed by a decrease in fiscal year 2028, and there's a slight increase from 2028 to 2029 spending. Here's an overview of the MPO boundary and jurisdictions within it and our projects. You can't really see some of the colors, but our point data is going to be the bridges, intersections, and parking lot projects, and our line data is street traffic studies and active transportation projects. I have another map for you here. It's going to be our degree of transportation disadvantage map. Everything that is purple are census tracts that are considered moderate to high or severe transportation disadvantage. That is based on 7 different categories from census data. And census tracts are given a score based on that. So a moderate would be a score of 4 to 5, or a severe or significant is a score of a 6 to 7. So 32% of the regions of the census tract in the region are going to be moderate to severe transportation disadvantage. And within that, those projects here, 24% of the overall funding from fiscal year 2029 is going to be spent within those census tracts. Lastly, on our website, there's a story map with our interactive map that you go click and see a bit more of these attributes and such, as well as different visualizations of the data that's in the formal document. Was there any questions?
One thing, the story map link requires you to log into ArcGIS.
Yeah, I'll fix that. Yeah, I'll fix that now. Thank you.
Once there's no other questions, you need to vote to adopt this. So
We just wanted to receive and file. Yeah.
also we need a vote on that. Okay, so can we get a vote that we received it? Or I need a motion on that. Sorry. Second. All right. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Thank you. Thanks. Addison has the report on the 2026-2029 federal fiscal year transportation improvement program amendments.
Yes, good morning, folks. I have before you a pair of fairly straightforward amendments to the federal fiscal year 2026 through 2029 TIP, which was approved last month and will make its way into federal approval in October. So this pair of amendments, they're fairly straightforward, and you'll see them reflected as amendments come October. First amendment here was request from Pleasant Hill for their University and Shady View Boulevard Improvement Project. They had a change with the letting date, and so the project will need to be moved from previous TIP into the current TIP into federal fiscal year 2026. Second amendment here comes from Polk County. This is their Bridge 2444 replacement over Northwest 86th Street over Little Beaver Creek. This is also a federal fiscal year 2026 project that just needs to be moved into the current TIP. It was adopted last month and will make its way in October. Happy to take any questions about these changes, but they're fairly straightforward, and I seek your approval.
I need a motion to approve that. And a second. Okay, is there any further discussion on this? All right, hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Next, we have a report on the active transportation plan update from Allison.
Not very often I have props, but I do. Bear with me for this second. For those of you who don't know me, Allison Riley, school planner here. I'm on our active education plan update. What I just handed you is we're trying to do outreach a little bit differently and pull people in to talk about bikes, bikes, walking, cars, without anger or sadness or a lot of things are really heated, and so we mocked these up yesterday and took them to the Blank Park Zoo as part of our outreach, just to kind of say, hey, charm and disarm, like, yeah, some of these things are real, so the gold stars are the real things, obviously, vision zero. But then we kind of quipped with the bottom just to get people to stop for a second instead of just flying past a transportation organization asking for more information. So peruse those. If there's anything you like or dislike, let me know. So the process is well underway. We have been working on this pretty much since I've come back now. And so one of the things we started out with was taking a review of all the plans that have gone on. So I had been gone for about 2 years. I had to bring myself up to the CSAP and all the new, we have new guiding principles, visions, missions, all these things. A lot of things have changed in the 2 years that I was gone. And so really trying to figure out how does an active transportation plan align in that new space as well. And then your community plans. A couple of you have actually done bike ped plans over the last couple of years. So what does that look like? How does that kind of fit in? And so then looking around, because I'm also working on the public participation plan at the same time, I thought, I don't actually know most of you. We see each other for about 15 seconds. I think, Mark, I've seen you 15 seconds for 10 years, right? And things like that. And so we have a lot of FaceTime with our policymakers. And so some of us staff are going around and having these walkabouts and walk and talks, walkie and talkies. Norwalk's not here, but we're calling it a Norwalk and talk. But just to have kind of a casual meeting, let's actually be on the street. We're going to actually do an active transportation plan. Let's get on the street and at least see, what are some of the things during a nice weather day that we might encounter, and then have conversations about some of the goals, but also planting a lot of seeds. We have a freight plan coming down as well. How do these things intersect? Are there certain priorities that your community has already brought forward? Stuff like that. And so as these continue to go on, we've asked people to send us an outline, and we're not doing that. And I'm sorry, but I'm also not sorry, because it actually lets us be a little bit more free in how we figure out what's going on in Milwaukee, or what's going on in Clyde, or what's going on in Covington or Johnson or wherever. And so it's been really fun. I will tell you, so all of you have been reached out to, if you are a tech member, you have got the call from Jane or Janet or myself. And so if you have not been on one of these, the weather is actually nicer than it was in the next couple of weeks. And so please do join us. It's about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And the people that are in the room can tell you it wasn't that bad, I promise. And so actually most of them have been extremely fun. And so we just want to kind of see what the infrastructure is like on the ground. We have a lot of data points and things like that from our CSAT. So what does that look like on the ground? And then have some conversations. We're also looking at how to align this plan. What does this final product look like? And I don't necessarily think we have exactly what that structure will be, because it's much more of a planning versus a process versus a product from the beginning. And so we are looking at these alignments. And then in the last plan, it was very generic. We are going to build bicycle facilities. I don't actually, it doesn't say anywhere what a bicycle facility was, who was going to do it, where we were going to get some of this funding. So really kind of cleaning that stuff up and saying, okay, within these spaces, this is what the MPO can actually do. We obviously do not regulate, we don't build, we don't do those things, but we convene and we do other things. So this is our piece of that pot. And then there will be opportunities for each of the communities then. We're building out kind of community profiles with a lot of the transportation data that we already have, and say, okay, if you already have a bike plan, you want to highlight some stuff here, that's great. Some of the smaller towns just kind of want to build in a mini bike plan. within that, I think that's a great idea too. That section, we can't really tell you what to do, and most of the time we do not. And so it will very much be a discussion of, hey, how do we want to put this in the plan and actually represent what you are doing instead of deciding that for you, because we do want this plan to move forward and to be realistic. That's one of the things that I think if you know me over the years, I try to be as realistic as possible. I would love to save the world, but we can't. So what are we going to do about X, Y, or Z? And so we'll continue to see that coming online. And we've been out there doing a handful of fun events. We are just a small staff, so the number of events, our exhaustion levels definitely vary throughout the summer. But this upcoming fall, so we are going to, now that we've almost, I'll catch up with all of you who haven't long been talking with me. But after those are done, we're actually starting to do some focus groups. So focus groups with school districts, schools specifically, you know, maybe certain schools specifically, chambers of commerce, the economic development piece, even the enforcement. When any of the bicycle ordinances came through the board, enforcement was really a big part of any sort of developments. Let's bring them in from the beginning and have a conversation. What are pinch points for them that we need to take into consideration? Even I'm not an engineer, and so having just a conversation with engineers, what do you need out of that? How can we provide value back to you? And so one of the easy things that we can kind of start doing is using our bike ped roundtable, which is religiously met for eons, it feels like. And there's a lot of great institutional knowledge about how exactly we got this wonderful gem of a trail system, and how we got through the connections, and what were those pinch points, and where were things where we could really run with, and come up with some of the best practices that we've already done, and then fill in the gaps. What are we still missing? What are our aspirations here? And then from there, fill that in, and then apply that to the streets. We put sidewalks in a lot of places. And so, you know, are we going to use them? How do we use them? What do those pieces look like? And I think it's a really great time, since the Safe Streets for All Mobilizing for Safety grant was in, and that talked a lot about the infrastructure, right? That's the infrastructure. And then the other piece of that is human experience, it's behavior in using that. And so we can kind of hopefully complement those things by doing that. And so you'll see a bike trail, a trail chapter specifically being developed this fall as well. And we're working with AARP pretty closely on a lot of things. One of the things they offer through the Livable Communities program is technical workshops. And so we're bringing in America Walks from, I don't know, he's got a British accent.
Yeah, we live on the East Coast.
The East Coast, and I think one's in Minnesota, but they're going to come in and they actually teach. It's kind of like a train the trainer, so that we cannot do every walk audit for every walking part of the metropolitan area this size. And so working with organizations, say, hey, what organizations might want to do walk audits? Come here, we'll train the trainer and start a ripple effect outward. So, you know, it doesn't have to be, you have to do 100. It's, hey, I'm going to go on a walk with my wife. Maybe we have a form, right? We're not trying to make it too intense. And so we'll be working on that. And then we were recently accepted into the MPA Iowa conference, which is highly sought after as far as I know. In this room, and I don't remember what the title is, but it has to do with walk audits. So if you're there, join us. Myself, Addison, and AARP will be doing that. And then one of the common questions after I say these things to folks is, where's the steering committee? And so I would like to just, especially with a group of planners, the steering committee will come after these conversations. I don't want a steering committee to steer us away from finding out what the actual priorities are. So we're going to do it a little bit differently after this fall. We'll synthesize that data and say, okay, we really have people that want to lean into that economic development. Let's get a couple economic development on that steering committee. Really, schools are all in at these levels. Let's bring those in. And so I would expect as it gets colder during my favorite time of year, we'll start having conversations with the steering committee that we'll kind of continue to build out and have them work to build out the plan. So that's what we're up to. It's really fun. If you ever want to join us. And oh, one thing, I did get an email that we don't have anything in here, but just to give you guys a heads up, the state will be starting to ask in September for trail and bike data, mapping data. And so just to give you a heads up, you'll start getting emails probably from Carl about that, but I figured I'd toss it in here just to say, hey, if you need to start updating your maps, the state will come calling pretty soon. So if you have any questions about any of this, I'd be happy to take them at this time. Oh, we have public engagement. I've already talked about all that. So this is the QR code to our active transportation website right now. Oh, questions, comments, concerns? Nick?
Allison, I'm assuming that your work includes some of the newer trends in this area, like e-bikes and scooters. Is that true?
It will. So it's kind of one of those things that how big will it be? Right? There's a couple towns that have really talked about it. Actually, you,
We hear
Waukee, Indianola, and where else were we that they just brought up scooters? But it was Bondurant. Bondurant doesn't have like a line that's coming in and dropping stuff off, but kids are using scooters to get to school more, right? So, and it's a different dynamic than what we had studied before. So I do believe we'll at least have some working groups talking about what does this look like? Because they're motorized and it says no motorized. And there are these pinch points, and children just obey traffic laws just as well as I do. So it's all fine. Any other questions, comments, concerns? It's gonna be fun. Yep,
You also have the next
I
item,
do.
I can't, process for federal fiscal year 2027.
Yeah, and I apologize that usually we give this out in July, but we didn't have July meetings because they were really light. So we are going to truncate the timeline a little bit. Really, with vacations, I bet this isn't too far off. But so pre-applications are due to the MPO through the Google form. Link is in the packet. If you can't find it there, feel free to email me. And then August 29th, those will be due to us. We will prepare them for the agendas for our September governing board committees. So it'll come to you all for review. It'll go to our executive committee and then be officially voted on as well in our policy committee meeting later that month. As that does come down, we will then provide resolutions directly back to you as soon as possible, because you all are the ones that submit to the state of Iowa, and you'll have the resolution from the MPO saying, hey, we endorse this too, which is always helpful. And the one thing that the DOT kind of asks on the opposite side, after you submit to them, you send us a copy of it as well, so we can have it on our records of what it looks like on the other side. So if anybody has any questions about this, I'm happy to take them this time. The ICAP website also has tons of information, and really nothing has changed year to year besides the number 6, the number 7.
Thank you. Next is Marcus, report on the long range transportation plan amendments and actually warm revision. So,
Thank you. So, as you may remember, the long range plan got approved last November, so it's obviously time for an update. Actually, but since then, there have been a couple things that have been completed that kind of correspond with some changes that need to be made in the long range plan. The first is the comprehensive safety action plan is completed. I think the target for safety goals. So we need to go ahead and get that updated. And then our certification review came back as a recommendation from FHWA to include 20 years of projects in the LRTP, which currently we only do 10 years. So as a reminder, we have 2 mechanisms to amend or revise the LRTP amendments. Are larger changes. They include socioeconomic projection changes, changes in the plan year, projects moving, and then any changes that require more than $2 million in federal funding. And then revisions are more minor. Nothing is really changing in terms of what are the projections saying for growth, but we're talking about what's happening in streets, what's happening for bridges, what's happening for rate, that kind of thing, and editorial revision. So based on the 2 that we have currently kind of sitting in front of us, the changes for safety performance, that was a goal that we've already had approved. That would align with this revision, but because of the recommendation from FHWA, we wanted to open this up to the communities to say, if you have any projects that you would like to include in the LRTP in that 20-year time horizon, we're gonna have you submit those to us and we can get them kind of all put in as one package of revisions and amendments. And if no one comes back with any project, we'll just go ahead and take care of the revision. We'll not worry about actually. Any questions on this?
So just to clarify, you don't have to have additional projects. It's just if you want to have additional projects, we want to provide that opportunity.
Correct.
And the 10-year plan is currently online right now, right?
Yep, currently online.
Is it helpful for your next FHWA review? Are they expecting those to be in there?
I don't know that we have to do it. It's not required. And when we talked about this, when we were developing the plan to go out 20 years, a lot of communities were like, I don't know what it's going to be. This is kind of a guess. Why? So that's why we didn't do it. So traditionally, yeah, that is something they look for, but we don't have to. It's just a recommendation. It wasn't a requirement.
We also just thought it's an action that we can take to address their recommendation community, and we kind of do. So,
Obviously, we can amend the plan at any time. So if you get funding falls from the sky, you need to amend a project in the plan or something. We can do it at other times. It doesn't have to be right now. Keep that in mind too.
Right? If they tell us, feds tell us how much money we have, we might be able to tell them what we're gonna do out there.
Right. We'll touch on that in the next couple items too.
Thank you, Marcus. Gunnar, as the legislative update, solves all of our problems.
Start with the joke too that we are all we all know that federal funding has been a big question for a while, and wondering what the future looks like. And today we're going to bring forward to you two opportunities to talk about programs that are important to your organizations. The first is a request for information on the federal side from USDOT. And there's a request for information out there right now. Comments due August 20th. So there are programs that you want to call out. You have the opportunity to do so. We'll make sure that link to the RFI are provided in the post email so you can go directly there. And then second, and similarly, Congressman Nunn's offices solicit from your communities about what programs are important to you. That's not just for transportation related things, but of course, transportation is part of that. So, now, Tony, you all know Tony, he's been here a few times. Again, we'll include these links in the post meeting email so you have that directly available to you. That's really what we had for you is that the federal funding has been a question for a while. And what is it going to look like going forward? And you have some opportunities here to say what you'd like to see. That's it. Unless you have any questions.
Is there a deadline that's this information?
I don't know if there's a formal deadline to it.
Tony said that ideally before the end of their August recess. We don't know exactly when that's going to be, so I'd say sooner rather than later, but it's no hard deadline.
All right. No other questions? Thank you, Gunnar. Then Dylan has an MPO funding update.
Thank you. So kind of related to the previous item, we have been reviewing our funding process. And if you recall, like Marcus said, we approved our long-range transportation plan in November, and then we approved the comprehensive safety action plans. And we didn't have a chance between the November approval of the long-range plan to really review and implement any changes necessary for the funding process. So given that, and given some other things going on, what we are proposing and what we want to get feedback from you on is the idea of pausing our funding allocations for a year. And that wouldn't be stopping funding. We would just do 2 years of funding the next time we do it and make up the difference there. The reason for doing that would be, one, just gives us time to review the process, make sure that it's easy for you in terms of just the mechanics of how it's filled out, the applications and everything, but also make sure that what we are asking in the scoring process and everything ties back to the long-range plan and to the comprehensive safety action plan. The other reason would be to allow USDOT more time to get through reauthorization. Currently, they're starting the process. The reauthorization bill expires at the end of next September. So when we do this, we're going to be awarding funds out that technically haven't been authorized. And SDBG funds have been authorized for 20 or 30 years now. So it's not likely they're going to go away, but they could change. We could get more funding, we could get less funding. They could change and say, you can't do this, you have to do this. whatever it might be. So rather than award a bunch of funds that we might have to change later, we thought this would just be a way to, let's just delay and see where they're at that point. By the next time we would do this, reauthorization should be done and we will know. We did talk to the funding subcommittee about this during the process this last year. That was a little different time going on. This is when everything was really crazy with the administration and USDOT and things were getting cut left and right. Things have calmed down a little bit more, but that prospect is still out there. This would just make sure everything's kind of safe. And then the other reason is as we've looked into this, I don't want to say we're unique, but a lot of other MPOs don't award funds every single year. They'll award it every couple of years or on an as needed basis every 2 to 3 years. And this kind of goes back to the certification review a little bit, is just wanting to ensure that we work through our tip and we get those projects done before we keep adding more and more to it. So if we don't award it every single year, we can focus on the projects in the tip, make sure those are further down the line, and then select new projects. So that's kind of a quick overview, but I really want this to be a conversation. We don't want to do anything that's going to jeopardize funding or make you comfortable. So we want to start with you. We'll talk to the executive committee a little bit later this morning, but want to get your thoughts on this. If you do want to do this, or you're okay with doing this, and we do pause, over the next several months, we would really want to work with you, whether that's with the full group or a subcommittee or something, to look at how do we want to change this process and what do we need to, whether it's the application, like I said, the scoring, what have you, to make sure that everyone's comfortable that it's a solid process going forward. So I'll pause there and just see what questions, comments, reactions are to that proposal.
Just to clarify, I think you said it clearly, but just to verify, so the next funding cycle would be an application for both FY30 and FY34.
And that's something else that I didn't mention is my thought anyway, our thought is we get about $20 million across our SDBT, CRP, and TAP funding. If we're awarding 40 million or 60 million, that's just more, we can be a little more strategic for what we do with it, right? Rather than doing 20 million every single year, we can group that together and be a little more creative, be a little more strategic with that. So that's something to keep in mind too.
Would that be an application for 30, and 31, or would it be a separate application for each one after we figure it out?
That's to be determined, but I imagine there could just be one application and then we can collectively figure out which projects are ready to go now, which project, 30 versus 31, something like that. Another option would be, do we get into, if we want to delay, do we do TAP funding one year and SDBT funding the other year and just kind of bounce back and forth that way? There's still something happening, but it's staggered a little bit.
I mean, we don't do a lot, so I'm maybe speaking out of turn here. There's other communities, but as we look up long term and lead time for some of these projects, trying to get your funding into the year and all the work you have to do ahead of it can create issues of, okay, now I've got to wait a year before I know what that funding level is going to be. So I can see some difficulties with it, but again, 5 doesn't do enough to the other communities have more projects than we do.
And to your question of whether there's still 2 applications versus 1, that's something we can figure out of whatever works best. But
And I'll say, if you guys hate this, we don't have to do this. We can make some small tweaks. It's like, again,
So that'd be probably my 2 cents. It seems like if we're gonna completely revamp the program, waiting makes sense. If we're gonna keep doing like we are, why would we delay things? So again, I kind of need that consensus. Do we want to completely change how we do the program?
or at least review it. I don't know that there'll be a lot of maybe there will be a lot of big changes. Maybe we'll say, no, this actually works pretty well. But I think it's important that we pause and take a look at it because we haven't done that in quite a while.
yeah, I'll say, taking a pause will give us an opportunity to think creatively. I know some other jurisdiction or some other metro areas, there will be a large jurisdiction that buys up federalized dollars and then put in local dollars. And that will change the requirements. What else would be required to do for local funds that would be awarded out in that process. So taking a pause would give us opportunity to think through different approaches that could add more value to your organization. So just want to put that on the table that we can make the process what you want.
I'm really supportive of reviewing the funding criteria this last time and they put any weight on the comprehensive safety action plan that we just put a ton of work into completing. So I think it makes a lot of sense to review the criteria. I have, a little bit of concern with the timeline of funding based on the other ends, but I think the value of reviewing that criteria is very.
And we agree it's important to do it. We don't necessarily want to rush. We typically release these in December, so that would only give us a couple months to, which maybe is possible, but we don't want to force anything and kind of do it halfway.
I think, the one of the disadvantages I see of like going every 2 years or 3 years is, sometimes with us, just getting some federal funding for a project in a year will move that project from maybe to actually being able to do it. And so if we wait, I get the advantage of kind of pooling the money, awarding a bigger amounts every couple of years. But I think I can see it as a disadvantage from the smaller projects. From our perspective.
When you say it helps move the project, you mean with like your city councils?
Yeah, to get the momentum. So even if we if we only get $250,000 awarded for this project, we can move that forward. And if we don't get that, we can't. And if we have to wait a couple of years, then probably on to something else. So I do see some advantages though.
I have no problem. with The idea of viewing the process, to look at it. But to that fact, I mean, you're looking for funding to get a project going, and you mess out now. I'll try next year to delay it. Now you're 2 years out, 3 years down the road.
Well, and to that same thing with the time it takes to get a project through the DOT's process, especially on the environmental side, if it misses funding, like right now, okay, if I get $500,000 on a project, all right, then maybe there's hope. Next year I'll get another 500,000, another 500,000, and now I got 1.5 million put together. But if I miss it on year one, I wait 2 years, I probably just plug ahead with local dollars at that point. Just because otherwise I don't want to develop a process or a project to submit it to the DOT and then not have any money because I've just added $500,000 to my whole process. Although if the political leaders, they want to hand out money every year, that's probably where I'll join that line. I
do agree with looking at the process, like the comments that they made about integrating the comprehensive safety action plan into the criteria. But I also think the application process, it seems cumbersome, over 100 questions. It just seems excessive. Yeah. And so a 1 year pause to reset that is needed. I think I'd be supportive of
Yeah,
that.
and that's what I was just going to say is it could be something where, yeah, that works really well. Let's do that going forward. Then it's every other year or something. But I think right now we're just saying let's pause for a year so we can do these other things. If that works really well, we can have a conversation of do we continue that?
Back up there. So you're saying we pause 1 year and continue with every year after?
I think that's the option.
I like that. I didn't know. We were
Yeah, and I guess I didn't clarify that.
every 3 years all the time.
I think there could be benefit in doing it every other year. So, but we can cross that bridge when we get there. If this 1 year pause didn't cause a lot of hardship, it works, and we see advantages to it, we can continue that. If we want to go back to every year, we can.
And I think I could support, 1 year pause, review process, get in place, and then have one time 2 year award. But I would be supportive of getting back to the annual awards with the process.
That would be similar to what we did with TAP dollars a couple of years ago. And this was more about the DOT said don't award funds, but then we just caught up the next year and did a double award cycle. Okay, so it sounds like there would be support for maybe a one time, and then we can address whether we continue that going forward. Just want to make sure we're communicating to the exec committee later today what the sentiment was here.
Dylan, just one note from Tom online is that the city of Des Moines will need to do a little bit more thinking about this before providing it.
Okay, sure. All right, we'll probably have this on the agenda again for next month, so we'll have a little bit more, maybe more formal questions prepared or think about what this process could look like. So give some thought to that in between now and then as well. Yeah, we'll pick this up next month.
Dealing with that, uh, follow through next month include some high level ideas about what that reevaluation process could look like. Just meaning, like, what is the involvement of this committee in that process and others?
Yeah, we can.
Some of that framework.
Exactly. And we have spoken to Tom Haddon is the chair of the funding subcommittee. We have spoken with him. He suggested potentially there's a joint meeting of funding subcommittee and maybe a subcommittee of this group, for example, to make sure that they're understanding the technical concerns and how that works. And you're hearing the policy side of things and what they go through. And that way it's just very collaborative.
Yeah, we'll give you something to react to.
And I would also say, I'm sure you have some of these off the top of your head. I know you mentioned the application process is a little burdensome. If you have those kind of things in mind too, that you can speak to us at any time, really. But we're not asking for, you don't have a deadline or anything for you yet. But if you think of those things, feel free to send those off. And we're kind of cataloging those. We've been going through that process and looking through everything as well and identifying things we think maybe need to be fixed. That way, we're just that far ahead when we go through this.
Dylan, I think that we're in a similar position as Des Moines. I think we're supportive of one-year pause. Those are the one-time pause, but if it becomes a change in the way that we do business with the 2-year funding cycle, I think that we need to think about it.
All right. Thanks, Dylan. On the back of your agenda, there is a list of upcoming events. Also, there is not on the list, but the 17th through the 20th this month is the American Public Works Association Public Works Exposition in Chicago. I'll add that as well. Next on the agenda, non-action items of interest to the committee. We've got a couple of steps.
Right. Yeah. First thing we're going to try this year is a media push about the FS4A implementation grant application. And this is to coincide with the period where they're reviewing. By they, I mean federal highway reviewers are looking at applications for making decisions. This is a suggestion that came to us from HDR, which helped us with the implementation grant application. And a particular individual who made this recommendation used to be a reviewer herself. And she says if you can get into the US DOT's federal highways news feeds while they're doing this, they can see the results work for it. That can really help you out. What I just handed you is a week behind they developed for us. We're going to offer this to you if you want to have conversations with your delegation or anybody else. We'll be coordinating a media push and making these materials available on the website. It'll happen over a span of 3 months starting in September, and we'll make sure to flag the organization, asking for your support. And just to give you a heads up for that stuff. Any questions? I'll do the next one. The other thing I want to follow up on is, as part of the process for seeking interstate designation with 555 path, we identified the need to conduct an alternatives analysis for the farmers who are currently using that corridor. That was baked into the legislation that passed this year. That's what made it politically palatable to go through with the other pieces that we needed. So the MPO has been coordinating with the Iowa DOT to make good on our commitment to do that. And we will be, as of yesterday, the RFP was published and distributed. We shared with right stakeholders so they can let us moving forward. Just want to let you all know that leading up to those commitments.
In case you're curious, it's been released by the Iowa DOT. We were involved in the RFP development, but they are the ones that are releasing it. We'll be the agency in charge of that. We will be a part of that team, though.
I think that's it for updates, unless you have any questions or have updates to your own.
All right. You have anything else, Dylan? I don't. All right, hearing nothing, we are adjourned until Thursday, September 4th at 9:30 a.m. Sorry, Mark.
So the ASC fall conference is, September 4th. Does anybody else? We'll figure something out. I don't think it. I didn't know if anybody else was attending that.
Is anybody, like, show of hands, anyone else going? I mean, we could potentially.
See, I thought this comes up every year, so I'm looking at our meeting date, to see if we'd already, we might not have.
Pretty sure I checked.
Okay, we do have it September 4th, so yeah, we could adjust that.
If it's just one, if it's just me, that's fine.
Or keep in mind you have alternates and feel free to set for alternates and so forth. That does raise the question though, if we're gonna have a big conversation about the funding process, maybe we have a special meeting or we can figure that out, but that's good to know.
I'm not opposed to doing it, it's good. Like Mark will have something to add to this conversation, so.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't, if it's just me, I wouldn't move the meeting, we'll figure out how to get the comments.
And to that point too, when we do have that, feel free to bring other people or send other people, you know, I know it might not always be you guys that fill out the application. It might be a consultant, it might be someone else on your staff. So keep that in mind and we'll try to communicate when we're gonna have that conversation. So we make sure we have the right people.
Just for clarification, I didn't hear a majority from moving it. I was personally leave it.
So leave it for now. And if you are gonna have issues, let us know and then we can adjust.
Good. Thank you.
Okay.